before they forced her to marry, the Apache Girl cried, and the cowboy took her away. This emotional story unfolds love, courage, and defiance against tradition. You won't believe what happened next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's get started. The desert sun was sinking behind the crimson mesas of Arizona, spilling gold and fire across the horizon. Dust shimmered in the air, and the heat of the day softened into a dry, restless wind that whispered through the sagebrush. Near the edge of an Apache camp, a young girl stood alone, her dark eyes reflecting the dying light. Her name was Naya, barely 17, but her face carried a quiet strength shaped by generations of warriors and wanderers. Yet tonight that strength was breaking. Tomorrow at sunrise, she would be forced to marry Chief Doka, a man nearly twice her age. The news had been decided weeks ago by the elders, meant to secure peace between her father's band and the neighboring clan led by Doka. It was not about love or choice, but survival. The tribe's ways were old, older than memory, and though Naya respected her people, she felt trapped beneath the weight of tradition. Her heart belonged somewhere else, or rather, to someone else. His name was Eli Turner, a young cowboy from the small town of Silver Creek. He worked at the trading post that sat between Apache territory and the white settlers' ranches. Eli was unlike any man Naya had ever met. He spoke softly, treated her with respect, and listened as if her words mattered. They met by chance one spring morning when Naya came to trade handmade jewelry for flour and coffee. Eli had admired the turquoise necklace she wore and told her it looked like captured sky. His kindness was awkward, but sincere, and something about his gentleness lingered in her heart long after she left. Over the next months, their meetings became more frequent, always brief, always secret, and always beneath the watchful silence of the desert stars. By late summer, their bond had deepened into something neither dared to name. Naya knew the danger of loving a white man. The old wounds between their peoples ran deep, but the heart does not obey warnings. She would sneak away at dusk, her footsteps quiet as the desert wind, and meet Eli near the river that cut through the canyon. There they would talk, of dreams, of freedom, of a life not bound by tribe or color. Eli often spoke of the north, where the land was green and the people less bound by old hate. He promised that one day they could live there, away from fear. That promise haunted her now as the drums of her tribe began to echo through the valley. The sound meant preparation, fires being lit, songs being sung, and elders gathering for tomorrow's ceremony. Every beat of the drum struck like a warning in her chest. Naya turned from the camp and ran toward the river, tears burning down her face. The twilight deepened as she reached their secret meeting place, a hollow beneath a cottonwood tree where the water whispered over smooth stones. Eli was already there, waiting, his hat in his hands, his eyes shadowed with worry. When he saw her tears, he rose quickly. "Naya, what happened?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. She could barely speak. "They've chosen tomorrow," she said. "At sunrise, I'll be his wife." Eli's jaw tightened, the muscles in his face hardening with anger and helplessness. "You don't want this," he said, though it wasn't a question. She shook her head violently, her braids flying. "I want you," she whispered, her voice breaking. The confession hung between them like fragile glass. For a long moment, neither moved. The river kept whispering, the world holding its breath. Eli took her hands gently. "Then come with me," he said. "We'll leave tonight. I'll take you north to Montana or maybe Oregon, somewhere we can start over." Naya looked up, fear trembling in her eyes. "If they find us, they'll kill you," she said. "My people don't forgive betrayal." He gave a sad smile. "Then I'll die doing the right thing," he said simply. His words cut through her fear like lightning through storm clouds. The desert wind rose, scattering leaves around them, and for the first time, Naya felt that freedom might be worth any price. They waited until the campfires dimmed and the night deepened into silence. Then, under a sky crowded with stars, Eli brought his black stallion, Smoke, to the edge of the riverbank. The horse snorted softly, restless and aware of the tension in the air. Eli lifted Naya onto the saddle, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it over the whisper of the wind. When he climbed up behind her, She could feel the steady rhythm of his breath. For a moment, she closed her eyes and prayed. Not for safety, but for courage. They rode fast, the desert stretching before them like an endless sea of shadow and moonlight. The cool air whipped through Naya's hair as she clung to Eli's coat. Behind them, the faint glow of campfires flickered, then disappeared. Every hoofbeat carried them farther from the world she had always known. She thought of her father, of her mother's songs, of the faces she would never see again. But she also thought of a life where her heart could belong freely. Freedom, she realized, was not given. It was taken, often at great cost. Hours passed before they stopped near the base of a red rock ridge. Eli helped her down, and they rested by a shallow stream, drinking water with their hands. The desert was cold now, the stars sharp and bright. Naya leaned against him, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. "Do you think the spirits will forgive us?" she asked softly. Eli hesitated, then said, "Maybe they will if they understand love." His words were quiet, uncertain, but they made her smile. She had been taught that the spirits valued courage above all things. Perhaps in that moment they were watching and nodding in approval. When the first light of dawn brushed the horizon, they mounted smoke again and continued north. Behind them, the world they had fled began to awaken. The drums would sound again soon, and when they did, the Apache would know she was gone. But for now, only the wind followed them, carrying with it the faint echo of freedom and the soft promise of a new beginning. Naya turned her face toward the rising sun, her tears drying into dust, and whispered a silent farewell to the life she had left behind. The morning sun climbed slowly over the horizon, painting the desert gold and pale pink. Naya and Eli had been riding all night, the exhaustion heavy in their bones. The world around them was vast and open, miles of dry grass, mesquite trees, and red earth stretching to the mountains. The silence felt safe for a time, but beneath it ran the steady pulse of fear. Naya kept glancing behind, half expecting to see riders rising from the canyon dust. Eli noticed her unease and reached over, squeezing her hand. "We're far enough," he said softly. "For now." They found shelter under a sandstone ledge where a trickle of water seeped from the rocks. Smoke drank deeply while Eli unpacked what little food he had brought: jerky, bread, and a small canteen. Naya ate quietly, her thoughts tangled between guilt and hope. She missed her people, yet she could not regret leaving. Freedom, she realized, demanded sacrifice. Eli watched her with concern. "You can still go back," he said. "No one would blame you." She met his eyes, firm and unflinching. "I made my choice. I'd rather die free than live chained." By midday, the sky had turned harsh and white. Heat shimmered across the plain, bending the air like liquid. Eli knew they couldn't stay exposed for long. They followed an old wagon trail north, cutting through narrow valleys where dry riverbeds coiled like scars. The land was rough but beautiful, the kind of beauty that made survival feel like defiance. As they rode, Naya began to hum an old Apache song, one her mother had sung at night to drive away fear. The melody drifted softly through the desert wind, a fragile bridge between two worlds. Their peace shattered when a distant echo reached them, the sharp crack of a rifle shot. Eli froze, listening. Another shot followed, then a faint shout carried by the wind. Naya's heart leapt into her throat. "They've found us," she whispered. Eli turned Smoke sharply, scanning the ridge behind them. On the far horizon, small figures on horseback moved through the dust, their shapes dark against the blazing light. Doka's men were skilled riders, relentless hunters. Eli tightened his grip on the reins. "Hold on," he said, spurring the horse forward. Smoke lunged into a gallop, his hooves pounding like thunder. The chase tore through the desert in a storm of dust and speed. Bullets whistled past them, splintering rocks and kicking up sand. Naya clung to Eli, her face pressed against his back, praying silently to every spirit she knew. The world blurred, cliffs, cacti, and sky rushing together in a fever of motion. Eli guided Smoke toward a canyon he remembered from his days herding cattle, a narrow cut through the rock that opened into hidden valleys. If they could reach it before the riders closed in, they might stand a chance. But the gunfire grew closer, relentless. As they entered the canyon, the air cooled and the shadows deepened. The walls rose high and steep, echoing each hoofbeat like a drum. Eli's arm burned where a bullet had grazed him, but he kept going. When the path narrowed, he swung off Smoke and pulled Naya down. "We can't outrun them here," he said, breathing hard. "We'll hide." He led her behind a cluster of boulders and covered the horse's tracks with loose sand. The shouts of the pursuers grew louder, bouncing off the canyon walls. Naya's hands trembled, but Eli pressed a finger to her lips. Silence. They crouched there for what felt like forever. The riders passed so close that Naya could hear their voices, angry, determined, searching. Dust filled the air, choking and thick. Eli held his revolver ready but did not move. Finally, after what must have been an hour, the sounds faded into the distance. Only the wind remained. Naya let out a shaky breath. Eli lowered his gun, his face pale from blood loss. "You're hurt," she whispered, touching his arm. He winced but smiled faintly. "I've had worse." She tore a strip from her shawl and wrapped his wound, her hands steady now. When the sun began to fall, painting the canyon in amber light, they dared to move again. Eli leaned against Smoke as they followed a dry stream bed northward. The silence between them was heavy but full of unspoken trust. Naya watched him, the way he walked, wounded but unbroken. Something inside her shifted then. He was no longer just the man who had helped her escape. He was her companion in the wild, bound by the same danger, the same hope. In his eyes she saw not pity but partnership. For the first time, she felt equal to someone. As night fell, they found an abandoned mining shack hidden by tall rocks and scrub. Inside, the air smelled of rust and dust. Eli built a small fire while Naya searched for anything useful. Old blankets, a tin cup, a broken lantern. When they sat beside the fire, the silence softened. "We can stay here a day," he said. "They'll move west," thinking we turned that way. She nodded, staring into the flames. "And after?" He hesitated. "There's a town past the mountains, Ash Hollow. We can reach it in 2 days. You'll be safe there." Naya looked at him then, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "And you?" she asked quietly. Eli smiled, though it was weary. "If I can get you there, that's enough." His humility broke something in her. She reached for his hand, holding it between hers. "No," she said softly. "We'll go together." For a moment he said nothing, only watching her, this young woman who had risked everything to follow her heart. Outside, the wind howled across the desert, carrying the voices of the night. Inside, they sat close, bound by something stronger than fear. By dawn, the fire had died to embers. Eli's wound had stopped bleeding, though his arm was stiff. Naya prepared Smoke and packed what little they had left. When the first light touched the canyon walls, they mounted again and rode toward the rising sun. Behind them lay a trail of dust, danger, and defiance. Ahead stretched the promise of a new beginning, fragile, uncertain, but theirs. The world was wide enough for both of them, if they could only keep riding. As they disappeared into the golden horizon, the desert swallowed their tracks, keeping their secret forever.